What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, reviewing today Lost Sphear. A few years ago, Square Enix formed a tiny studio for the sole purpose of quickly making retro-style RPGs. Their first project, I Am Setsuna, came out in 2016 and really impressed me by blending together lots of themes in combat from stuff like Chrono Trigger while also trying to do their own thing. As good as that was though, it was quite a simple little game, clearly something that was made on a short time frame with a small budget. Now, we're finally getting a second project from this team though, and the question is, are they able to improve upon what they built with the first, to make something bigger and better? The answer to that is a bit of yes and a bit of no. The biggest thing here is the writing is dramatically upgraded. The story we got in I Am Setsuna was very bare bones, whereas here, we're finally getting a real world, starting with our hero Kanata. At the opening of the game, he's just a young kid trying to exist in this town, and his job is bodyguard. Basically, whenever a monster shows up in this tiny village, it's his job to take it out and make sure everyone remains safe. Well, one day while he's on an assignment outside the city limits, something happens. A horrible spell befalls the entire city and makes them what are called the Lost. As you can see, it just basically shrouds the entire world in white. We later find out that this is because they lost their memories, although why it happens is the big mystery of the game itself. The only way to restore these people and places back to their original form is to find their memories, the lost pieces that connected them to this world, to the world around us. Now, doing that basically means going to kill big monsters, and that's pretty much the loop you're going to be doing in this game. Go into a dungeon, capture some memories, restore a piece of the planet. But it's actually quite good, and I find that I really kept wanting to play this game because of the characters themselves. They all have very stereotypical hero behavior, but I can't help but just enjoy their interactions. Specifically, Van. This is like your main magic guy of the party, and he cracks me up. At any time, he is willing to get into a crazy fight. In fact, he even punches people occasionally. He's just the type of person who's just there for the action. He doesn't even have a real motivation. He just wants to be there to save some lives while also kicking butt. And I kind of like that because it feels like that is who we are in most of these video games. As the player, we're just here for a good time, and if people actually get rescued in the process, that's just a happy accident. But what's really important here is the combat itself. Any role-playing game is only as fun as it is to actually get into battles, and this is something they really dramatically changed from its predecessor, Setsuna. Now, you can actually move around in combat whenever it's your turn. So essentially, it's still turn-based battles, but whenever it's your turn to cast a spell, you get to move around the battlefield, positioning yourself to try and aim your magic as clean as possible. This makes it where you can actually strike multiple targets if you aim it properly, and also, it's very vital that you get used to this because most bosses do very strict area of effect attacks. Like this boss here, he's a giant wall, but what's really important is the fact that he actually moves his arms at the end of each turn. So in order to try and make sure you don't get hit by these hundreds of tons of rock, the smartest way to handle it is to back up and throw magic, because even if it does less damage, you won't be hurt in the process. Therefore, meaning you won't have to waste time later on trying to heal. It makes it where you have to be more spatially aware, but as long as you're strengthening yourself enough, this isn't too important. Even more so later on when you start getting mechs. So in the story, there is this lost civilization that had super advanced technology, and of course that's equipment we get later on. The key item we get are these Robo Suits, which look like something straight out of Final Fantasy VI, which I just love. They don't really have a super great purpose. Basically, they have their own sort of energy bar that's kind of like mana, but it makes it where anytime you even put the suit on, it starts sucking out some of this juice. So really you end up using it as kind of your worst case scenario outfit of if you see a really strong enemy up ahead and you're low health, it's a good idea to throw on your suit then, take them out, and then retreat. You can't really use it a bunch because recharging it is really rare. You kind of get stuck trying to use it only for boss fights. And that's cool, but it also feels kind of useless. And the reason I say that is because the upgrades in this game are already so strong. Getting more weapons and armor is a really big aspect of this gameplay because growing stronger is based on the gear you have equipped. You don't actually do more attack damage until you get a sharper sword, but something they've introduced in this sequel is the idea of upgrades. No longer do you just have to wait till you get to the next store. By getting Red Sprite Knight, you can put extra magic enchantments on a specific weapon to make it incrementally stronger, and this makes it where I felt like I got too powerful too quick. By buying these upgrade points for relatively cheap, I could get myself incredibly powered up quite early on. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I feel like something that kind of dilutes the fun of Lost Sphear is just the idea that all this strength is kind of being wasted. None of the monsters are that big of a threat, and since we can get so strong so fast, after a while, so many of these extra mechanics felt a little bit pointless. This is especially true when it comes to the magic. So just like in Setsuna, you actually buy spells by collecting different pieces of the world. So whenever enemies drop animal parts, you can turn these into vendors to get new types of magic. This is a cool way of making it where you're constantly getting stronger according to whatever you're fighting, but it still just kind of felt a little bit fruitless. I felt like 99% of my situations could be handled just by beating the crap out of stuff with my basic weapon. Never did I feel like I was underpowered if I forgot to visit a store. In fact, in a couple towns, I didn't even bother looking for the shop because I knew that my basic weapons were so immensely strong that getting a new spell was kind of just frivolous. Overall, I have to say that Lost Sphear is a big step in the right direction for Tokyo RPG Factory. This is a game that's worth playing, especially if you are a really hardcore fan of RPGs like I am. However, I do think that it's still not fantastic. I feel like Setsuna managed to have a little bit more of a passionate vibe to it. It felt like indie developers getting a chance to prove themselves, whereas Lost Sphear, it feels a little bit like something put out of a factory. This is a soup with a lot of ingredients, but there's just so much in it that no one flavor ever stands out. Okay, so we've heard some good and some bad, but let's head over to the ratings board and put a big number on it. I am giving Lost Sphear an 8 out of 10. If you're eyeballing this right now and you're kind of on the fence, I do say you should pick it up. It's a really interesting little game, and honestly, the biggest thing that they've added that I'm happy about is the quick save system. You can now pick this thing up and put it down whenever you want, and it makes it a lot easier to just jump in, grind, jump out, and not miss out on the action. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. This has been DreamcastGuy with another review. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. If it sounds like I'm whispering a little bit, it's because I'm trying not to wake my friend up. And if he sees this video, I'm sorry, Sadiq. Oh, hi. I'm just working on the next video. If you want to see what it is, go ahead and click this button and you can subscribe. Also, if you click these video links, you can see my latest review and my latest top 10. Now I'm just going to sit here for a minute and wait for you to subscribe. Oh, I guess I could put on these giant glasses. I literally found these on a roller coaster.